So this is a world map, and we can see every continent on the Earth in it. But today we're just gonna focus on one specific part of the world. This little green area right here. Well, you can ask, what's the significance? Well, it's the Amazon rainforest, of course, and today we're gonna talk about the relationships between organisms, food webs, and trophic levels of this vast expanse of trees and bustling life. But before we go any further, let's go over the important aspects of the food web. First of all is a trophic level. Trophic levels are basically the different stages/levels in a food chain. These levels are based on the diet of each type of organisms. Within this ecosystem, we have several different types of consumers, and a separate level for the producers. Together, these organisms make up the complicated and intricate system of energy transfer within the Amazon rainforest. First is the primary producer. These are organisms, usually plants, that take energy from the sun, and they are the basics of the food web, the beginning point of energy. Next are the primary consumers. This level is usually consisted of herbivores that feed on the primary producers. After that are the secondary consumers. These organisms feed on the primary consumers, and they are also eaten by the tertiary consumers. The tertiary consumers are usually the top predators of their respective ecosystems, and have the ability to consume all consumers before them. Lastly, we have the decomposers and the tridivores. The tridivores that feed on dead matter, and decomposers that break down the matter. And now, finally, we can move on to the food web of the Amazon rainforest. So here I present to you one of the many food webs of the rainforest. And since there are so many different species and organisms in the Amazon, this is just taken as an example of some species. Now, it might seem like a very complicated drawing since there are so many arrows flowing around, but it's actually an extremely simplified version of an actual food web relationship between organisms. It seems that there are a lot of organisms present, so removing one of them wouldn't cause lots of differences, right? Wrong, actually. Every single organism, as long as it is within the food web, serves a specific purpose, or purposes, whether to be eaten, or to eat, or both. This means that removing just one organism might cause major population declines or increases. Now let's take a closer look at how different factors might affect this web and its residents. So imagine a scenario, if you will, that in order to clear parts of the forest for farming, people light a section of the forest on fire. This destructive event causes all the nearby banana trees to be burnt and obliterated. What effects might this have on the ecosystem? Well, for starters, the 7 organisms that directly depend on this fruit will suffer the consequences. Out of these 7, 2 of them, the scarlet macaw and the fruit bat, will suffer the most because then this means they have no good source of food to rely on, causing a drastic decrease in their population. It is shown on the chart that these 2 organisms feed mostly on banana trees, while other organisms have replacements. The macaws and bats would either have to move to a new home to live and survive or try to eat other types of food. Well then, that's it for them. Their populations just go down, right? Well, actually, there's more. The decrease in population of the macaws and bats will affect a lot of other organisms as well. We can see this with spectacled owls. As they mainly depend on eating bats to survive, this means that one of their main sources of food will decrease, leaving them less choices for food, and consequently decreasing the population of the owls too. On the other side, the kinkajou will also lose their diet of feeding on the macaw's eggs and their hatchlings. As these 2 species have lessened in population, the green anaconda and jaguar will also be impacted, but not a lot since they are both top predators and have lots of other choices of food if one of their food sources disappear. However, let's move on from the decrease in population and see how this might benefit some other species. With the spectacled owl's population lessened, the capuchin and spider monkey have just lost one of their major predators. This means that their population will see a sudden increase. Their predators, the anaconda and jaguar, might also see a slight increase in numbers due to an enlargement of one of their food sources. With an increase in anacondas and jaguars, all the other animals below them, which they prey on, might then see a small decrease in their numbers as they are more frequently preyed on by the tertiary consumers. Back in the producer level, the disappearance of some banana trees can provide space for other trees and plants to grow, so it is possible that all the other producers can see small growths in their population, with the newly available space left by the banana trees. And well, this is just one of millions of examples of how the presence of an abiotic factor or event can cause massive changes to the ecosystem that they have acted upon. All of this has happened because the fire burned an area of banana trees. And this shows just how closely tied organisms are with one another, even though they might be separated by different levels. So, we have seen how abiotic factors can affect ecosystems. But what about biotic factors? We know that each species can affect another, but it is to be noted that certain species are more important than others within a habitat, as there may be less of them, but they have an unusually large effect on the environment and the organisms around them. For the Amazon rainforest, the agouti can be a prominent example. The agouti is a type of rodent native to Central and South American rainforests that show great resemblance to guinea pigs. The agouti, although small in size, can surprise you with the amount of work it can do to help shape the rainforest. This is because an entire species depends on agoutis. The Brazil nut tree depends on them to use their sharp teeth to crack open their hard-shelled seed pods. In the dense rainforest, it's hard for the Brazil nut to spread its seeds, which is why the agouti is so important. By cracking open the notoriously difficult to crack nuts, the agouti ensures the reproduction and survival of the entire species of Brazil nut tree. Without these rodents, this species of trees wouldn't exist, meaning that the organisms that depend on it, like the capybara, king-bichou, wild boar, would have a small population, or even go extinct in extreme situations. If these populations decrease and maybe even die out, their competitors in food resources would increase in populations, such as the tapir, fruit bat, and opossum. These are the dominant species of the Amazon rainforest, and if they do grow out of hand, it could lead to a decrease in vegetation as the population boom has led to more plants being consumed. The main difference between dominant and keystone species is the size of their population. They both have large impacts on their ecosystems, for sure, like the agouti, as we mentioned before, but the main difference is that keystone species are usually smaller of a population when compared to the dominant species. Keystone species can be seen as the keystone in an arch. It holds the ecosystem together. And that concludes this talk about the Amazon rainforest and its food webs and relationships between organisms. Of course, there are tons of examples and events that we can take out of this amazing and rich ecosystems, and they can all show the importance of species to each other, as these are just several of many.